This is just my opinion.
I'm a filmmaker.
Are you guys videographers?
Who cares?
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Village Films podcast. Today, we're incredibly honored to have a very, very special guest of the podcast, the extraordinarily talented Natalia Temesgen.
Hold for applause.
Thank you.
All right, let me get this whole intro out
Oh, okay,
because
sorry.
There's more.
it's
Great.
very well deserved. So, Natalia is a powerhouse screenwriter, producer, playwright, and professor whose work continues to move, challenge, and inspire across mediums. On screen, she's written for the Emmy-nominated Netflix series Dear White People, HBO Max's Julia, and most recently served as the writer and producer on Hulu's Reasonable Doubt, where she wrote the gripping episode 6 of season 2. She's also the co-creator of Grounds, a Georgia-based miniseries filmed right here in Columbus. On stage, her acclaimed play Lawn People received honorable mention for the prestigious Relentless Award, and her play Look Forward, the Ruby Bridges story premiered regionally in January 2025 at Prime Stage Theater in Pittsburgh. She is an associate professor of creative writing at Columbus State University, a Princeton and NYU Tisch alum, and a passionate advocate for diverse voices in storytelling. On a personal note, Natalia has been a friend to Village since the beginning, offering encouragement and insight during the early days of our documentary, which helped shape the way we told the story. All right.
Wow. Thank you so much.
After reading all that, I don't even know if we're even good enough to talk to you.
Okay, well, let's just shut it
We'll
down.
stop right here.
All right, cut. We're going to go again.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
I've been meaning to do this, and I appreciate being invited. Thank you for having me.
We finally wrangled you to
I
come
know.
on. I don't know how we convinced you, but
Summer break.
I know.
Love it.
So we're in the industry, I think, on one part of it. You know, we're on the camera side, more on the directing side, and you're kind of obviously this awesome writer. So I think we wanted to just get insight on the screenwriting process, like what your process looks like. And I think it's just interesting for us three. You know, we've had some conversations about the industry itself. I just like having those kind of conversations, especially with someone like you that's seen maybe behind the curtain a little bit. So maybe just talk about like, what have you been working on recently, the last few months? Like, what has your kind of journey looked like this year?
Sure. The last few months have been like a return to form, I feel like, because I actually have not been on a show the last few months. So it has looked like getting back in touch with the stories that I'm more interested in telling. I wrote a feature last summer, and it's looked like continuing to refine and develop that and sharing it with people, getting feedback. It's also been kind of like thinking about a new pilot, as well as trying to develop a pitch for a limited series that in June, we'll take it out and see what happens in the market. But it's just been a lot of like independent work, which is unpaid, obviously.
Love
that. It's our favorite.
Right there. Passion projects.
Exactly.
More nice way to say it. But.
Yeah, passion projects. But it's good because it's like when you are working on a show, it does become such a obviously there's creativity going on, but it is like a cog in a wheel kind of feeling. And you lose a little bit of that sense of autonomy as an artist. So it was good to recalibrate because I'm hopeful, obviously, that I'll go back and be a cog again. But it just feels like sometimes you forget like why you even are doing it. You're just, when you're working on a show, you are helping to support someone else's vision, which is really great when you're aligned. Obviously, like it's awesome to see people realize something that they've been germinating on for a long time, but then you kind of look around and you're like, okay, it's been like 3 or 4 years and I don't know what is my vision, what am I trying to make?
It's because like you're building something for someone else.
Yeah. So
Well, so that's an interesting thing you brought up, because so most recently you were on Hulu, which was, when was that? Was that last year?
Yeah, last year we wrapped production of season 2 of Reasonable Doubt in like May, and then I think it premiered in August or so.
So for that one, it was obviously you helped develop that episode and write that episode, but you were also producing. So was that like really different? Did you like it less or more? Like, what was that like to kind of shift from just screenwriting to actually producing on the episodes?
Yeah, I mean, I liked it a lot. In every other job, I should say, except the first one with Dear White People because of COVID, but in every other job, I was able to go produce my episode of the season. So I had done that, which is usually like maybe, between like 8 and 12 days of pre-production, and then same amount for shooting the show, the episode or whatever. So being around for maybe close to a month and getting to work with a director and stuff, I always thought was cool. And I'm the type of person, when I meet my director, it's almost like a first date, you just feel like you just want to bond really quickly, and like you're trying to find those things you share beyond just like the work, oh my gosh, you have a dog, me too, what kind of dog do you have, and in the case of like pretty much everything I directed up until the most recent one, it's a lot of women that I've gotten to work with. Sorry, I wasn't directing. Everything that I've produced, my directors pretty much have been a lot of women directors, which is so cool because a lot of them are moms or wives as well. And so getting to connect on how it feels to leave home and have your kids at home, or your spouse kind of like maybe out of his comfort zone, maybe depending on like the way that, he dads. So, I mean, like, it does feel really fun to make those connections. What was different when I was on set for season 2 of Reasonable Doubt was that I was able to be there for the whole production. And so that felt like I learned a lot more, because it was also about continuity and not just sort of making the connection and making sure that the episode that I was responsible for was properly represented. But it was like, even things that I didn't write, I had to feel really confident about what the intention was of everything that was happening, especially when my showrunner was off doing X number of other important things that a showrunner is doing. And it sort of falls to you to make sure they don't just do like a bunch of takes of a scene that don't quite represent like what it was supposed to be, because then it's over with and you can't really go back. If you do, you're in a little bit of trouble.
Yeah. Well, so since you were there for that whole time, what was that length of time to be there for the whole show? How long was that? So
that we started in January, and they did a little bit in LA as well, but they were in Norcross. So
that's nice.
On a stage, and some locations actually that we just passed off as LA. Okay. But it was January to early June.
Wow.
What is like a typical day of producing look like?
For I was more so doing a lot of pre-production work. So I would, because I was commuting from Columbus sometimes, I would sometimes be on these calls. So like these prep calls with every department, right? Like it's
30 people on a Zoom call.
Yes. And it's like they're going through the script every time,
wow.
like scene by scene of like, well, what do we need to have? What does costume need to know about what's here? Or like props.
Basically like every detail.
Yeah, so you're just going through it over and over and over, which is great because, and then there's like tone meetings, which is like, what is the spirit of every scene? Like what is the sort of, what's important to capture?
And then they communicate that to like the talent and stuff, or?
Well, yeah, the director's in all these meetings, and then like, the showrunner is usually always there in the tone meeting as well, because that's kind of the most important thing. But she, in this case, my showrunner was really good at communicating a lot of these things early. So she might not show up to a later in the process, like props meeting, because she knows that we know. And so then we're just going down the line, making sure everything's being communicated properly. And then of course, before you even get into production, you'll then have another props meeting or another costume meeting where they'll have pulled whatever they think that you need, and you actually lay eyes on everything and make sure it's correct before you really start. And then there's a lot of location scouting, which I would do a lot of, which is like a lot of sitting in a passenger van in traffic, stopping and looking for where the coffee
Especially
shops
in Atlanta.
are. Yes, exactly.
Stuck on 75.
Yeah.
How do you adapt from like when with the location scouting? Because like I can imagine when you're writing scenes, you kind of have a visual of what the location looks like.
Yeah.
So do you give input to the location scouts on that, or you just kind of adjust and adapt when you see the locations that they've picked?
It's a little of both. Like if something just feels really different from what I know the intention of my showrunner was, I can say, I know she really, really wanted it to feel like 2 separate rooms and not this one big loft space. I'm making something up, but like that kind of stuff where it's like, if you want this to work, we need to clear it with her first, kind of thing.
Do they get mad?
No. And sometimes it's like, she'll be like, you know what, let's rewrite it that way then, because like this makes more sense for other reasons to do it here, and let's just do it like that.
Because sometimes it's like money.
Yeah,
Like this
right.
location is a third of this.
Or it's like, we can do another scene at this location that's perfect at this location, so let's make this one work because we want to be here and we want to make a day out of it. So you know, those kinds of things come into play.
So with Dear White People, Julia, and then Reasonable Doubt, the showrunner, so Hulu or Reasonable Doubt was a female showrunner. Were the others, were those females as well? Was it
No,
males?
she was my first female showrunner, and she's a boss and pretty amazing to watch, especially as a Black woman showrunner. It's just like, whoa. And, you know, in my age group, I'm like, it was really cool. But no, my other 2 showrunners were both men. One was Dear White People is a Black guy, Justin Simeon, and with Julia, it was Chris Kaiser, who was the creator of Party of 5. So he's like a veteran.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And that was amazing also, like learning from just those different types of like leadership and experience and just their perspective based on where they are in their career. And it was just different. You know, they all kind of ran the rooms in their own way.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that was cool though for you with Reasonable Doubt to have a female showrunner, and like, you know, your first time working with someone like you as a woman, like you said, that had to feel really empowering. Like,
Yeah.
this industry is for, you know, all diverse voices. So
Yeah.
maybe your next project, you will be the showrunner.
Maybe.
Well, let's just shift a little bit. I want to talk about like the state of the industry right now, because we were talking about it a little bit, and me and David, it seems like
I like to complain.
Yeah, well, not always.
there's
I get
things to
this
complain
email.
about.
I get this email called the Dailies. This is not a paid ad, but maybe if you want it to be. Our 7 listeners will definitely subscribe to the Dailies. It sends you like it's like industry insights, like box office performance, what's getting canceled, what's getting signed on, what's getting renewed. And it's always really interesting to see like just the makeup of like what's falling off and not getting renewed, what's like crushing. And so
Nothing makes sense.
yeah, it just seems like there's no formula. So from your perspective as someone who has worked for these big studios, like, because you were telling us the other day, it seems like, you know, the feature work is actually picking up. So maybe just tell us a little bit what you think the state of the industry is right now and what that's like.
Yeah.
Is it doomsday?
Oh my gosh. I really hope not. Yeah, for all of our sake.
We're in the wrong business.
Like a bad time. I think it's a tight season, but like definitely not. There was this thing going around last year with the writers of like survive till 25. Like everything will open up again. And it's like, well, what is it? Survive till 26
like,
doesn't
what
rhyme.
specific day was it going to open up?
Exactly. It's like, so I think there's maybe a little bit more optimism than was look, there's other forces too, like political forces and other things that we just couldn't really have totally predicted going on. But I don't think it's over with. I don't think it's something where, however, that being said, it is a gig economy. So some people are going to fall out. And I think that's why it feels existential, because on a one-to-one person basis, there are people that haven't worked since we went on strike. Okay. They're probably no longer getting union health insurance, for example, or whatever. They've pivoted to another job if they didn't have like an incredible, financial sort of windfall situation there. But what is that person supposed to do now? I don't know. Like, that's where it gets scary to me. And that's where I'm like, I'm just trying to stay as productive as possible, because it will come back. It will pick up. But the numbers, what I was telling y'all about the other day, like the WGA did a poll after the strike ended of like, how many people are working right now? At the time, I was actually working. And I remember feeling very lucky, because Reasonable Doubt was, the writer's room for season 2 was actually underway when we went on strike. So when we came back, it was like, we literally went back to work, which was just amazing. So many people didn't have that experience, right? But so at the time that this was taken, I wouldn't even have been one of these numbers. So I would be very curious, like, what is it right now? But anyway, it was almost like a 50% drop in writers from before to after the strike that were actively in a TV room. So,
well, because the strike, how long was it again?
It was, what was it? Oh, I should know this. It was from like May till, was it like October?
So that's a long time.
It was a long time. And I think what I noticed that was interesting was the numbers for screenwriters didn't drop as much. So I was like, that's sort of, I don't really quite know what to make of it yet, but I thought, well, how interesting that I wrote my first feature since grad school in the last few months. Like, maybe that's
so features are on the up, and TV writers is kind of,
well, everything's down.
Okay.
But unfortunately,
great job.
It's like
we're cooked.
Nothing is going right.
Features are up, right? Well, actually, hold on. Everything is down.
Features are down less.
Well, let's go back a little bit, like before the strike happened, and you were like hearing those rumblings. Walk us through like what was going through your mind before it actually officially happened, and like what it was like to go through that as someone that's in, the what is the writers union called?
The Writers Guild.
Okay, WGA. Yeah. There's so many letters out there.
There's a lot.
Gosh.
I learned about some
as a member of the WGA,
right?
If they want to get a sponsorship,
sponsor us, WGA.
They're like, who is this guy who keeps asking for sponsorships? Bruh. What was it like when, I guess, they started communicating, hey, we're headed for a strike, and then they're like, we're striking, and you're like, cool. How was that for you? I mean, because part of you probably doesn't want to go on strike, but part of you is like, the things we're fighting for are really good, so there's like a balance.
It was like, especially I remember the AI thing felt really big at the time, and sort of everything that we got, I'm happy that we have. I don't feel like, it would have been better if we had just taken whatever they gave us. I don't think that at all. I do think we might have maybe possibly overestimated like what, or underestimated perhaps the greed that exists, and the fact that this money that they should have for us, they're just still not going to give us. They're like,
we're
not
going
to cut our
give you for a couple of scraps.
Yeah, so like I think we just were a little idealistic perhaps about that part, but I think everything we fought for was important.
What are some of the like top wins that you guys got?
One thing that I really liked for writers was, it used to be that a staff writer, if they wrote an episode of TV, wouldn't get paid for that. This is a sort of a small thing in a way, but when you first break in, your pay rate is lower than all the other levels. But the biggest check that a writer gets is the script. Over the course of the room, like the single biggest check is for turning that script in. So to not get that when you're literally doing the same work seems sort of...
How is there a difference between... what is the difference between a staff writer and what's the title of someone who's turning in a script and getting paid versus a staff writer that wasn't getting paid?
Every other title. So staff writer is like the entry level writer in the writer's room.
Gotcha.
But the writer's room is very, there's obviously it's not like everyone's doing the exact same load of work, but for the most part, you are showing up as a group, working as a group, breaking story as a group. And so when a staff writer's writing their episode, they probably have a senior level writer, like kind of maybe helping a little bit, but they're basically doing the work of writing it just like everybody else that writes their episode. They just wouldn't get the check for it. And that also, you know, feels like the hardest job to get in a way is the first, and then the second hardest, or maybe depending on who you ask, the hardest is maybe the second time. You know, so that's kind of a very crucial moment to get like a $25,000 check. So that was a big win. Another one is the mini rooms were like a very common thing that were happening, where you would sort of not greenlight something, but say we'll do 10 weeks of a writer's room and see if we want it after that. There was a lot of that going on, and writers weren't getting as much out of that. So we protected a lot of that work and said, like, you know, you have to give us minimums that are more fair, and things like that. And then another good one was production, which is why I got to go be on set the whole time, was that there was a minimum now. It used to be tough to get writers on set because that's a line item that doesn't have to necessarily be there. They'd be like, the showrunner's already there.
Sure.
So what do you want another writer on set for? But that's like a huge job. So, you know, you're running around and you're just kind of potentially missing things. So now there has to be a minimum of 2 writers additional to the showrunner on set for the entire production.
And so those 2 writers, will they, so there's the showrunner. I guess we're just talking about the format of how a show works, which we've never worked on, so this is great. There's the showrunner, and then the 2 writers now will work with, like, is there a script supervisor that they're connected with, or is that like not as important if you have 2 writers on there now?
No, the script supervisor is still super important, but the writers are almost like able to be ambassadors of the showrunner. And so there's more of a strength from the showrunner because they have the writers there too. So like, maybe the showrunner couldn't go scout and would just be getting phone calls of like, here's what it looks like, get on FaceTime, you know, but you can send a writer in your place while you're, you know, on set for the actual thing that's filming. And you feel that comfort of like, we were in the room together for 20 weeks. This person knows what I want, you know?
So like, we've been developing this show together through the whole time. The script supervisor is just there to make sure
they're saying the right lines.
It's like really, like they aren't deep into the tone and the emotion of the show, so that makes sense.
Okay.
So let's see.
Well, we were going back to, like, kind of the industry disruptions and stuff. I did have because like you're more inside on it, and Caleb and I more kind of view things from the outside perspective. And I was wondering if maybe one of this disruptions is like, it seems to be this like uncertainty when it comes to like short form content and social media. A lot of like influencers and creatives, and it's like people are going to consume content more like on live stream and Twitch and things like that. And you're like, that next generation just would rather watch YouTube videos all day than sit and commit an hour and a half to a movie.
For sure.
And then you have the wrestle of, well, COVID killed the theaters. It's like, was that, I guess that may have been true, but maybe there was also like a shift at the same time of like, when the theaters shut down, people realized I can stay home and consume content in a different way. And then maybe we just never got back to that, go back to that old way.
Things are great.
We love our phones.
Is there any
how do we shut down social media?
Is there a silver lining in there?
What is the question? This is making me
The
sad.
question is, are we cooked?
I think like so I did go back through our schedule of minimums, which is like our 3-year contract that we always do for the Guild, because I was sharing it with some like emerging writers, and there's a bunch of pages in there that that haven't applied to me, but that speak to like new media and stuff like that. I don't know. I don't have that like at the front of my mind, but I wonder, there had to have been some kind of protections for some of these. Like, I know for sure like video game writers and things like that, you know, because you're right. Like, there's just so many other types of creation going on.
Yeah, it's just impossible to predict like where like media is going to be in 10 years. But when you just see like oh, Kai Cenat streaming and 300 million people are watching.
Yeah.
That's way exaggerated, but you're just like, man.
But also,
is
like,
anyone gonna care about the movies we're making?
I think people are still
They're
watching
not the same
shows
audience,
too.
aren't they? Yeah.
Well, so
yeah,
like,
well, those people will grow up. We want them to be the audience.
So my wife
That's
Gabby
true.
was telling me yesterday. She's like, she read this article where she's now watching One Tree Hill over again because it's all on Netflix or all on Hulu. And there was an interview with the main guy, and basically this entire new generation of like teenage girls are watching One Tree Hill, and they're noticing him on the street saying, hey, I'm such a big fan. He's like, that was 20 years ago. Like, what?
Like, weird.
And so it's like a lot of these old hit shows are
Yeah.
being recycled through these streaming services, and now people are like, dude, this is amazing. So it's like,
it's giving them new life.
yeah.
Kinda.
And I'm
was
really
interesting.
interested in like what does our new deal mean for residuals for something like that?
Yeah.
Does
Like an old show that
Yeah.
was on television and now is
Right.
on streaming.
Well, like Friends, they all got, I think, some residuals, but like when it came out on Netflix,
Streaming has its own residual like
Yeah, well,
schedule.
that's what I was gonna say is, like, so for instance, a show like Friends, that's a massive show. The people that wrote that show, they were making really good money from the ad revenue and all that. So when it goes on Netflix, is it in the new deal that like the way the residuals are shared, it just converts to however Netflix does it, like per?
I mean, I would imagine it has to because it's like that is a new adoption of it or whatever. But I was also just curious, like, think about, I guess, writer credits, for example. Like, I know we sometimes see this now, but it's really not cool when like a showrunner will or a creator will basically take the credit on every script that comes through the room, even if they didn't really write it. They might go back, it's common for a showrunner to go back over it and tweak things and just find their voice in it.
oh my gosh.
But they usually will let the writer that wrote it have the credit, right? Because think about the financial impact of whoever's name is on it is how the residuals flow after that. So
That's dirty.
Yeah,
That's,
I know.
yeah.
Let me just
You
periods,
wrote
and
this.
now I've got a six-figure check.
Yeah, like you've seen that, especially on like I think like some of these prestige shows too, but like some of these miniseries and stuff. It'll be like there is a staff, but the written by is always the same guy or something. It's like, what is that? They're not literally writing them
it's
all by
ego.
themselves.
Is there like a clear definition of like how much do you need to contribute to something before you get like a writer's credit on it? Like if Caleb writes 100% of the script and then it comes to me and I just refine 5% of it, like that shouldn't be enough to merit me like a writer's credit. It's almost like I'm just
I think
editing
this
it.
is Writers Guild. Can you sponsor this answer?
call them right now and ask them, because like we're actually
Call your rep.
I'm like, I don't really know if there's an actual number on that,
Yeah.
but like that scenario, the showrunner shouldn't put their name on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, David, I wrote the script. Oh, sorry, this is a fake scenario.
Yeah. It's usually the other way around.
Yeah, it would not be like that. David's we've never written a script. David has actually written a feature script.
Oh, really?
We won't talk about it.
Wait,
Do we want to
what?
get?
Let's get into it.
We don't want to get into it.
Off camera, we can
Yeah, we'll talk
get into
later.
that.
So we're talking a little bit about shows and stuff. What have you watched recently on TV that's like inspired you? What shows are you watching right now? Like what have you enjoyed, especially from like a writing perspective? Like, oh, this script, this dialogue is great.
Ooh. I watched The White Lotus again. I actually didn't think it was a great season. I think season 2 was great. Season 1 was fun too, but it's what I like about The White Lotus, besides the fact that Mike White is obviously at this point, one of the giants of successful TV, but I love the idea that it's like an anthology series. I love an anthology series that feels like it works and can continue to live on, but that they almost feel like they can really stand alone.
Explain that to me like I'm 5.
Okay, like The White
Define
Lotus,
anthology.
well, there are a couple of characters that go through, so it's not a pure, but like kind of what American Horror Story was, for example. It's like every season kind of stands alone, but they're all in the same vein.
They're connected thematically, kind of.
Yes.
That's cool.
So like the White Lotus season 1 was in, I think it was Hawaii, and like there's one character that carried over into season 2, but otherwise, or no, 2, but otherwise it was all new people, and it was a new hotel. It was the White Lotus in, what was it, like Tuscany or something like that. It was Italian, and then this was Thailand. So I really liked it, but not as much as the others. And then I watch a lot of reality TV, like
Love Island?
not as much of that. Like I like the competition shows. Like I
Shout out
watched
to
Big
my wife.
Brother.
Okay,
Big Brother comes
throwback.
back in July. Yes.
And you know, yeah, you're a fan. What are they on, like season 90?
I got into it because of Justin Simeon and Dear White People. I never watched it before, and we had like a Big Brother style plot line for a character. So during lunch breaks, he would make us watch the show, and it like actually got me kind of into it. So now I've watched it ever since. Watching Love on the Spectrum.
Okay, I've seen some of that. That show is so wild and interesting.
It's so
cool.
sweet. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not watching a lot of.
You need to watch The Studio. We told you to watch that.
Yeah, I know.
Well, I had a question. When you're when you're watching The White Lotus, like when dialogue is written really, really well, does that like stand out to you? Can you
Yes,
like imagine
I can tell
them
you right now.
What's that
there was
like?
a sequence. Y'all have to help me. This is bad that I forgot this actor's name. Walter is his name? What's his name?
Walter Goggins.
Yeah.
Sam Rockwell.
Yeah.
There's a scene where they're at the table. I was just going viral.
Yes. Oh, okay. This is a viral thing because I didn't know. Like, so I was watching the episode.
It was like a monologue. It was absolutely wild.
Yes.
Not
so
safe
I'm like
for
watching
work.
the episode, and that moment happened, and I literally like sat up in my chair. And I paused it. I was like, what? And then I rewound it and watched the whole scene again because I was just like, wow, what is happening? And it is a little bit out there and crazy, but it also just felt like these are the moments where the writing stole the show.
Yeah.
I mean, the performance is great too, obviously, but the language itself is literally blowing the show open right now. And that's the kind of stuff I love.
How do you write good dialogue?
Help.
Well,
What's your process like? Do you write it? Oh gosh. Do you write it and it's like then you get up and you act it out and you like say it out loud?
everybody has like their own. Like I was talking to a friend who literally does improv basically and then dictates afterward. For me, I just feel like it's almost like it's just instinctive, like what a person would say. When it starts to feel like I'm thinking too hard about it, it's not as good at that point. And that's okay, because then you can go back later and make it better.
Yeah.
But like when it's really good, it almost just feels like it's just coming through you. It just feels natural. Like, I think actors can be really good writers because they understand character. Like good dialogue is motivated from a character in a moment that's having a real want or need.
Sure.
And
You
so
make
if you
it
can
sound
sink
so
into
easy
that,
though.
Yeah.
Like you've sent me scripts. Like you sent me like a spec script for a series. The one about the guy. I don't know if you want me to say
cook?
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess I'd never really read just a straight script from you before, and I was just blown away by how it just seemed natural because we've written stuff before, and when you try to write people talking, like we're not seasoned writers, so it's that's our lack of experience, but it is really hard to write something and make it sound natural. And I think people don't really realize how difficult it is until they sit down and try to write out a script.
Especially because if you're reading dialogue or you're reading a script and you read it out loud,
yes,
everything comes, like for me, it's like everything that comes out of my mouth is cheesy because I'm not an actor. And so it's like I'm reading it through
and
a
you
lens
are just cheesy.
of just like, I'm like, everything is just cheese. It's just this.
Why do I sound like a nerd?
Okay, well, here's like 3 tips or
Everyone-
takeaways.
Are you listening? Screenwriters out there.
So this is something that I was asked to do in grad school that I always think about. It's like go sit somewhere public and basically eavesdrop and dictate a conversation you're hearing. What you will find is that both like the fact that people don't make themselves very clear often. Conversations are more abstract and strange than what you would think if you're writing it. Mm-hmm. And they also are just not as interesting as you would think either. So it's like it helps you understand what a normal voice sounds like and how people talk. Mm-hmm. But it also helps you understand like where you do need to be like a writer and like make it about something.
Story, yeah.
But it was a great like revelation of just like, yeah, people don't sit there and say, hey, I wanted to check in with you about the thing you said yesterday about
yes,
like no one talks like
they don't
that.
speak in corporate email language.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. That's a great tip.
Yeah.
I also when I was writing, because this was my first time ever writing a screenplay, and so I was pretty good at like shaping and mapping out the scene and like, you know, kind of setting the stage. But when it came to the dialogue, I just had to write it. So I would just write it, and then I'm like, I'm going to go back through this maybe at least 10 more times.
Yeah.
And each time it would just sound more natural and better. But it's like, how do I make this not sound like, what are you doing here? How did you get here? You know, like very robotic based on the scene and the direction you want to go in the story. It's like, how do you be just natural sounding, but also like cool?
Well, what are the other two tips?
Oh, the other two. Well, one is similar to what you just said. Like, well, first of all, don't over stress the first draft of whatever it is, because it's not good, and that's how it's supposed to be.
Don't overstress. It's not good.
It's not good.
Clip that.
I promise. It's not good. But then what you'll find is like if you go back through it, usually the first sentence of dialogue was you getting like sort of winding up for the thing you really wanted them to say. And it's like usually the beginning part of the dialogue can be cut. So like if it's a piece of dialogue that has 2 sentences in it, like just cut the first sentence of it every time, and it still probably make perfect sense and just feels so much more natural.
Yeah, that's good.
And a lot of times we're redundant when we have characters speak.
Sure.
So they're saying the same thing basically, hitting the same note in 2 sentences when it should be 1. And then the other thing, what was the other thing?
Have fun.
It definitely wasn't that. Oh yeah, it was.
Take Xanax.
It's definitely not that. You're not
It's
gonna have
not
fun.
that fun. No, have people read it out loud. You were saying that like when I was on maybe, you know, this should be like draft 3 maybe, like get to a point where you feel pretty good about it. But when you hear other people reading it,
You're like, oh, I gotta change that.
like I don't let my students, when we do workshop at school, I don't let them cast themselves when we read. I just make them sit on their hands and be quiet and listen to everybody reading it, including the action lines. And it's so uncomfortable. And I've done it to myself. It's just you hear everything all of a sudden. And you're like, that's terrible.
And it's probably, that helps you really get into the
because you
refinement.
sell it to yourself without even realizing it. When you're writing it and reading it to yourself, you're like,
oh
yeah.
my God, I'm such a
This
genius.
thing, like,
I like have cinematic music in my headphones. Like, this is the best thing I've ever written in my life.
Someone's reading it, you're like, you didn't even play the cinematic music behind it. What are you
Exactly.
doing?
Exactly.
So bad.
Well, so this makes me think of something that me and David were talking about the other day, which is we saw this interview with I think it was Pete Davidson, someone talking about how shows now, some of them are writing into the dialogue. Basically, it's to where the
You
gist
can
of it,
scroll on your phone.
Yes.
they're
Watch
writing
it.
it to where like
Yes.
all the action is built into it, and so like you don't even have to be watching, and it's just like and I think in the clip he was like, this is so depressing, and it really is, because if that's where everything's headed, it's like the popcorn generation of like, hey, you don't even need to look at your screen, but you're still going to consume this show. It's like, well, what's even the point, man? Like, this is a
No,
visual
that's a
medium.
real thing. That's a real thing. And I don't know where that started, but it is something that affected
It's awful. It needs to die.
rooms I've been in. Yeah.
Well, have you been seeing the Google AI's kind of
That just came out.
yeah.
What? No. Y'all are so much more on top of this
So
stuff than me.
You're on
there
social
are
media, though. Come
viral
on.
I am on
videos
social media.
of Google, was it VO3 or something?
It's like their AI video model.
You
and
prompt and it will create a scene for you,
Oh.
and it's very like you could like I can look at it and be like, okay, I can tell like I can see some of the things where it's noticeably AI on some things. But if you're just scrolling and it doesn't say this is an AI video, you probably wouldn't know.
No one had seen it yet, and so it came out, a couple of clips, and it kind of blew up the internet because it was unbelievably like realistic, and everyone's like, I think it scared all the filmmakers. And that's the AI thing is still an ongoing conversation of like, can you ever, like we were saying the other day, Quentin Tarantino was like, AI doesn't have any childhood trauma, so they'll never be able to make me feel. But like, if we input fake childhood trauma into the AI model, is it gonna like obviously we're on the side of it needs to be human creation because these are human stories,
right?
But these big companies are like, we just want to make money.
Yeah, for
so
sure.
like, what do you see as the balance between those things?
I mean, not to get too spiritual, but like, if you do believe that you are body, soul, and spirit, like there is like this spiritual element to creativity and filmmaking, and like you will resonate with that. Like if I'm pouring out my soul of something that happened through film, through this creative means, you're gonna receive that on the other end.
I believe that.
And an AI generated thing, I don't think it's gonna have the same like impact as.
But I guess the question is like, how good does the model become?
Well, that's the thing is,
are we all AI?
It's not gonna have the same impact, but the problem is it's learning from real things, and so it's trying to make a copy of something else that the thing that was made did have resonation and creativity and like an aspect to it that was like very human, and it's trying to make that, and so then you're like, oh my gosh, this looks kind of real.
I
guess we'll find out.
Don't know. I mean, it makes me, that particular story sounds like it'd be scary to be an actor or a director too. I mean, the Claude and the chat of it all was scary for us. But I mean, I've never seen, I don't know, I'm not looking for it, but I've never seen AI put out a great script before.
You've read some AI scripts though, haven't you?
You mean at school?
Like just in your field, people have sent you scripts that are.
No, I don't. I mean, I actually do know for a fact that I had a student turn in an AI script because they told me. But I don't think so. I mean, and I think it would be bad. Like I've used AI to like brainstorm stuff, and I don't think that's so bad. It's almost like a poor man's version of having a writer's room. It's like, so this is what I'm thinking this character's doing, and this is the backstory on this character. Does that make sense? Is there something else that's interesting?
As a tool,
using it as a tool,
it's not bad. I mean, you can even overuse it as a tool, but I mean, sometimes it's just hard not to use it for certain things. Like,
like if I want to research a certain topic, I could spend 8 hours on Google reading through articles, doing all this stuff, or I can prompt, into an AI and say, hey, can you give me a breakdown of what the film industry looked like in the 1950s and what are the top 10 box office, performers, and translate that into today's numbers, based on inflation. Yeah. That would take a second versus 6 hours of
3
me doing
weeks
that,
to put that into.
For sure.
Yeah.
So that things like that, I think is great.
Yeah.
But yeah, not writing.
Well, I want to shift a little bit because I want to get some of these are kind of like, they can just be kind of rapid fire. From a screenplay perspective, what are like your top 3 movies if you had to hammer those out?
Okay. My number 1 is Mrs. Doubtfire.
Hello.
Exactly.
Great reaction.
I mean, it's just so good, and the performance has improv in it, I know, but like I think that inciting incident, I teach that scene, like the idea of 2 loving parents that just have different perspectives on how to parent at that season in their lives, the birthday party with the animals in the house, and then that breakup scene with the kids on the staircase, and they love each other, but she just doesn't want to do this anymore. it's just so sad. And
Man,
I love
need
how
to go back and watch that.
it's really
great
funny,
movie.
but there's a lot of pathos in it.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it gets deep.
Dang, 2 and 3.
Maybe just one other one.
I mean, I like horror. I would say Drag Me to Hell is one of my favorite horror movies. It's got that kitschiness a little bit and campiness to it, but it is still kind of scary and
Sounds so scary.
has a little bit of
We don't watch a
everything.
ton of horrors or scaredy cats. But
You are.
I think I've seen clips
Have you
of
seen
that.
The Witch? That's another great one.
Is that with Anna Taylor-Joy?
Yes.
No, but
love
that
her.
one was pretty critically acclaimed,
Yes,
wasn't
it was very, very good. Very well done.
So of like the great screenwriters, who are some of your favorites?
Oh my gosh. Was this on the sheet?
No, no. So you don't have to, well, so for us, like when I watch a movie that Aaron Sorkin wrote, I'm like, this is just
You feel
this
that,
is
right?
insane.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I would say he's up there. I'm trying to think. I don't know.
I guess it's kind of
hard.
funny because they don't get a ton of recognition.
Yeah, the directors
usually.
are always the
Yeah.
ones,
Yeah.
and I should be
Well,
better
sometimes
about
they're
that.
writers
but-
too, but it's funny because we were talking about dialogue. That movie that Aaron Sorkin wrote about Steve Jobs. I don't know
Yeah.
if you've seen
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
It's like the movie is non-stop talking, but it's so engaging, and it's just like crazy how he could make any of that make sense. And like I think he's just a fanatic. Like he's unbelievable.
Yeah, social
I mean-
network.
Shout out to Aaron Sorkin sponsorship. We're just gonna keep doing that.
I was gonna say, I think a lot of the writers I admire are theater writers. I think that's where I started my writing career, and that's still kind of my North Star of like the people that I think I aspire to sound like. So I didn't come in tracking screenwriting as much.
Well, speaking of the stage, I don't know how to frame this question because I don't know as much about the theater. But what do you?
Theater.
What is your
Theater.
like when you see traditional actors on the screen come to the stage? Like, what do you enjoy seeing them in those roles, or like, are you like think theater actors? Or is it like an exclusivity there, or what is that like?
I think if they're good, that's awesome because theater is certainly not dead in my opinion, but I think it's been on life support for a while. So when we can infuse like excitement about going to a show with like a star, that's good on some level, that's good for business. I'm sure there's a lot of people that would disagree with very compelling arguments, but I think in the big picture, it doesn't bother me. And a lot of times we know the actors from the Hollywood side, but they were theater actors first.
Yeah,
Hugh Jackman loves
Yeah.
theater.
yeah.
That's like what he does.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't go to the theater a lot, but if I was like in New York City and I saw that like Denzel Washington and Timothy Chalamet and like these actors were going to be in a play, I'd be like, man, I want to go see that.
Yeah.
It's like that star-driven thing will get more of the general public, and
Yep.
I guess the theater snobs are
Well,
like,
even
there
in
should
New
only
York,
be-
like the theater scene is just so
Oh, yeah.
different.
Yeah.
So
It
it's like I
is.
would
dude, we
go.
got the Springer, okay? We got to see here. How dare you?
We get Broadway shows at the River Center, don't we?
Yeah,
David's never been to the Springer.
I
my
have
goodness.
been.
Just outed him.
Just haven't been
Okay,
to a
let's get to the
show.
rest of this. I don't even know if this is, if you can answer this. I sent it to you, but what's the weirdest note you've ever gotten from a producer or like a studio head?
Oh gosh.
Oh, there's so many.
No, it really does.
Going
Like
to
I
the
think
library.
what's honestly happened is I've repressed so many things about that because
Shout out to the studio.
what'll often happen is that the note doesn't feel like it makes sense. It's like either it's like we're already doing that, and a lot of times when you get those kind of notes, it's like, oh, I think they want us to just make it super obvious what's happening because it's there. You know, a lot of notes like that. I can't think of a certain one. I don't have anything at the top of my head.
When you get like a note like that where it's just like you're kind of rolling your eyes, is part of you like they are trying to provide creative input, but they're not necessarily like the creative voice in this? Like, is that kind of like a battle? Because we have a whole episode talking about how like these people that have all the money are trying more and more to dictate the creative, but they're not actually the creatives. Like,
Yeah.
is that like a real thing? Like
Well,
a
they're
struggle?
trying to dictate creative based on the motivation of like, we want to make as much money as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there are great producers and executives out there that have an artistic center. They're certainly not going to be as rooted in the craft that you're doing, but they might really get it. Like, I know some that feel like they were really aligned with like what the showrunner wanted to accomplish. And so the notes would be more, we have the same goal in mind. And I know that this is important to you and I'm not getting this, or I think we need more of this or that because we want to get to achieve the thing that you want, you know?
Yeah.
But it's like, it's sometimes it'll be the thing of like, I just don't even understand. We talk in like the writer's room a lot of like, what's the note behind the note? You know, what are they actually saying? They might not know how to say it. And they're like, this line doesn't make sense. And it's like, yes, it does. But it's like, why are they saying that? It's like, okay,
yes, it does.
We didn't set up the scene before that well enough for them to understand why that line makes sense. Okay. But like, sometimes you get a note and you're like, I'm lost. I don't know why. And sometimes your showrunner might just say, we're just going to ignore that note.
Just take that note and crumble it up really
like,
tight.
we're going to answer a lot of the other notes. They're going to forget they had said that. It'll be fine.
Bury it.
They just ate at the Hollywood style buffet before they made the note.
Yeah, like sometimes it feels like they're like, I'm like, did you read it? Like there are those, I've had notes meetings where it feels like I don't even know for sure if you read it. I think you read a little bit of it or somebody told you about it that read it. And you know that you have to have a meeting today. And so you're just saying stuff.
Yep.
Well, it's like we were talking about the documentary. So I'd be like, oh, that documentary looks scary. You're like, did you watch it? They're like, well, no.
Yeah.
What are you talking about, dude?
Right.
You know who you are.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, like, we're pouring our hearts into this stuff. Like, I don't mind notes that are good. I think notes are really helpful. But, like, when it feels like, where is this coming from? That's a waste of, that's offensive. You know?
I love hearing about, like, notes directors have given actors. Like, what's his name? Gary Oldman. Mm-hmm. He was talking about how on one of the Batman movies, Nolan had not given him very many notes, and one of the notes that he remembered most was they did this scene, and Nolan came over to him and just said, all he said was, "There's more at stake. Let's do it again." That's all he said. And Gary Oldman was like, who obviously is one of the greatest actors ever. He was like, I immediately knew what he meant by that. And I think for him, like, his brevity of the notes he'd given actually made that note he gave him more impactful. And so it's always interesting to me to hear that kind of stuff, especially from a writing perspective, because, like, it's just weird. Like, are they giving you notes throughout the process, or is it like we have this draft? That's gonna be hard.
The outline goes to them first, so the
my
producers
gosh,
will
notes
read
on
it.
the outline?
Yep, and then the network will read the outline.
Ooh. Yeah.
Then they read the drafts, and you have multiple drafts. But you know, to your point about Christopher Nolan's note, like being on set, writers. I'm not gonna speak for all of them, but for me, like watching the way directors give notes, I'm like, this is a totally different language. Because when an actor will sometimes ask us, you know, like, talk me through what's happening in the scene or whatever. I have a long answer for you. Okay. I'm going to use a lot of words and I'm going to give you more information than you might need. Whereas a director is usually like you say, like a lot more kind of, they're saying a lot less and it's really going a long way. And I think the way a writer's mind is, there's just so much stuff. And it's like, oh, I can tell you about like what you were doing when you were 10. You know, like, what do you need? I have everything.
It's like, tell me how this character is feeling. Like, well, it all started when you were born.
Exactly. It's like, that's not helpful sometimes for an actor.
I wonder if they do that too, though, because they know that if they give too much information, it can get in their head and affect their performances. Yes. And so
actors are fragile beings.
Yeah, they don't need all that.
Yeah.
So that's the thing I'd like to improve in the future, having better director style notes on set.
There's more at stake. I'm just gonna say that every time.
Dude, shout out to Christopher Nolan. Can we get you on the podcast?
There's more at stake.
Oh my gosh, if we get him, that'd be amazing. So just maybe one or two more here. this is kind of a good one. If you were going to give encouragements to like up and coming writers, people that are writing their first kind of feature script, they not even in the industry, and they don't know the journey ahead, what would your encouragement to them be? What would you say to them?
I just had a conversation like this yesterday. One thing I would say is, what would happen if this doesn't work out at all? What's at stake? Why do you need to do this? And if you can't really answer that, then maybe this isn't the right time, or maybe this isn't something you need to do at all. If it feels like, okay, my why is big enough, then do everything that's within your power, which is a lot of things, and let that be your metric of success. Because a lot of the other things that make things happen for you are out of your control. And if that's what you're waiting on to feel validated, or like you're a great writer, or great artist, like that's a very dangerous way to approach it. So if you want to do it, then you take it seriously, like it's your job, and you sort of have these goals you want to reach. And once you've done everything you can and, turn it over, then it's like, I did it. And you just have to be proud of yourself for that, because that's all you can do. I got caught up for a season in like, I'm so busy. I keep getting booked. Like I started to feel like, who am I if I'm not getting booked? Like, am I a good writer if I'm not getting interviews anymore or whatever? And it's so stupid, but it's like, it's very tempting, right? Like when you get validation from an opportunity or something, it's like, oh, I am, like, someone is telling me I'm great. But like, I was telling myself I was great before that person. And if that person changes their mind, am I no longer like amazing? Of course I am. Like, so you just have to really have that advice would be, have your center together, your why and your sort of like metric for success being something that's exclusively within your range. The rest is just, it is what it is.
Well, that's just human nature. That's something to fight, is my value and self-worth and my belief in myself as a creative can't be grounded in what someone else thinks about my film or what job I'm getting. And so that's like a constant battle, because if you live and die by like who's hiring you or what project is getting greenlit, it's just going to be like you're just going to be on a roller coaster, which is really hard to do. Shout out, but no shout out there. I've said shout out so many times. I'm just saying it.
Shout out.
Oh, we're going to format this card. All right. I was saying something so good too. Okay, just two more here.
My legs are going off.
What's the last movie you saw in theaters, and what was your thoughts on it?
It was Sinners, and I thought it was amazing.
Yes.
Let's go.
Shout out to Michael B. Jordan.
Dude, shout out to Michael B. Jordan. Shout out to Coog.
Ryan Coogler.
Please, can we work with you? Actually, you know what? Michael B. Jordan, this is my second time imploring you. If you're listening right now, please can we work with you, because you are amazing. And
love you.
now we've got Nat, who's going to help us write this screenplay. We don't know what it's about yet, but you can be the star.
Period.
And Nat said it too, so now it's double. Okay, I think last question, which is maybe a little bit outside of film, because literally it's in the question. Where do you find inspiration outside of film and television, what you're watching? Like, where does your inspiration come from?
What I'm afraid of. I had a teacher tell me in grad school, write from a place of fear, which sounds pretty dark, but I think what it really means is like, that's where the most urgent stories are, So I like to think about like, gosh, what is really disturbing my spirit? What do I feel like I need to engage and wrestle with? And that's usually like where the story should come from.
Man, that's
good.
That's a great perspective. All right, what am I afraid of? Love
It was
them.
perfect timing.
All right, anything else you want to say to the world? If you want to,
Hey, support local artists and local film. Subscribe and listen to the podcast.
wait, let's get a clean one right there.
Like and subscribe to the Village Film Podcast, y'all.
Love it. That is like dynamite right there. All right, guys. That's all we got for today. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Natalia. Follow her on social media. Follow her work. Go watch all the shows she's written. Go watch every play that she's ever written. Go consume everything and look for her when she's going to be the showrunner probably within the next couple of years, I'm sure.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for having us. Like and subscribe to the Village Film Podcast, y'all.